Right. Good afternoon, everybody. I see we're about 3 minutes past 3 now, so let's get going. First of all, welcome. Welcome to the first webinar for Bearings 2000 of our new Bearings 2000 Training Academy. We're all very excited, especially for me hosting this. So everybody that is tuned in, guys, thank you so much for taking the time off on this Thursday afternoon to join us. So what we're doing today is we're just going to go back to basics. A lot of people tend to forget the basics when it does come to bearings. So this is just a small little presentation, a little training session, if you want to put it that way, to just go back to the basics about rotation. What is it that we do and why do we need to rotate? Guys, there is a comment section. You can please put any questions in the comment section or raise your hand like that. We will get to that when we do get the chance, or a little bit later on. And can I also ask that you just, if you are not within Bearings 2000, the company itself, if you are from the outside, guys, please put your name and an email address or something in there for us. We would like to be able to share more of these opportunities with you going into the future. So just drop that in there. If you don't want to, you can always contact your account manager from Bearings 2000 if you like to know more. So if everybody is on board, then of course we can start to get going. Right, guys, a little bit about me. My name is Wynand. I am in the lovely, sunny, beautiful Cape Town at the moment. I am the person that heads up the training academy for Bearings 2000, celebrating 20 years in the industry this year. And for the past 8 years, I have been managing and presenting and writing the training for bearings within the Western Cape region. So we are excited to be able to take this out now from a B2K point of view. And I hope that we'll get the necessary feedback from you guys as to content, material, etc., etc. Guys, I still got somebody's mic on somewhere. Got some sounds coming through. If you can just have a look, make sure that you are muted. Thanks, guys. Right, so what are we looking at today, guys? I'm just going to give you a brief introduction as to Bearings 2000 and the training academy that has been launched. We're going to have a look at our rolling bearings basics. Like I said, this is basic bearings, back to basics. We're also going to have a look at how these bearings are made up, the different types and functions, characteristics of these units. Looking at loads and why we've got the various bearings and the loads that they need to accommodate. Bearing identification in terms of how to identify as you take the unit out of a machine if you are an end user, or where to go and look for bearing if you are OEM. And then, of course, we also need to discuss the bearing life. Okay, so just a little bit about Bearings 2000, guys. I don't know how many of you are very familiar with Bearings 2000 as a company. If you do not know us, welcome. If you do know us, thanks for joining once again. So Bearings 2000 was founded 30 years ago. We've been going strong, so it's not just an overnight one. We are independently owned, so we're not part of a big corporate structure, if you want to put it that way. Currently, we've got about over 50 employees. Last number I actually checked, somebody said to me we're closer to between the 60-70 mark. 7 locations nationwide, including 3 big distribution hubs situated in Cape Town, Durban, and the Johannesburg region. Product range. Bearings 2000, yes, founded on bearings, guys. We do the entire range in terms of power transmission. We do seals, we do lubrication. So everything surrounding the rotating, we are able to provide you with. Okay. And then, of course, like I said, we do have 3 large distribution hubs in the Western Cape, the KZN region, and Johannesburg, of course. Yeah, so that is just a little bit about Bearings 2000, guys. Please go visit the website, have a look on the website. There's some nice reading material on there as well. Also go have a look. There's 1 or 2 videos on YouTube about our founder, Nick. So if you get the chance, go and have a look at that. Right. Now, a little bit about my baby, the Bearings 2000 Training Academy. Guys, we launched this last month in February. We are very excited about this. This is being rolled out to all the regions. So if the fact that I'm in Cape Town and you guys are in Joburg or KZN or Mpumalanga, wherever you are, that doesn't matter. We will be catering nationwide on the B2K Training Academy. And we aim these trainings, and whether it is a public classroom training or on-site training, we aim it at the end users of the maintenance teams. So your artisan in charge, normal fitter, boiler maker, whatever the case may be, what you want to call them, that is where we are aiming at, and where we try and get the guys. Sorry, guys, I just had a little bit of a, there we go. The echo's gone now. Thanks. All right. And the aim, of course, is if we educate and we skill the guys surrounding the rotating, that we get an improved uptime. You know, I always say that an artisan's favorite tool would be a 4-pound hammer. And unfortunately, the Bearings' least favorite tool is the 4-pound hammer. We try to aim to get your uptime up by skilling the guys in terms of how to handle the product that you guys do purchase from Bearings 2000. Okay, we try and get the most out of the rotating equipment, and we'll get to that when I speak to you guys about bearing life. How close to bearing life do we actually get? We need to extend the bearing life, and then, of course, we need to form a partnership. We are not box movers, guys. We are rotating specialists. So we need to be able to form a partnership and understand what your needs are so that we are able to provide you with the necessary service, product, and advice to be able to fill that need. All right. So here's another echo there. Can we just turn off that? There we go. Thanks, guys. All right. So the most common question would be, if I look at all the trainings that I do, is, guys, what is the purpose of a bearing? And sometimes it's an easy answer, sometimes it's not. The purpose of a bearing is just to reduce friction. We do not eliminate friction. It is impossible to eliminate the friction. We are aiming to reduce friction. So when we look at what friction is, of course, friction is two objects moving relevant to each other. So if we have a look at that box over there, that box over there wants to move that way or that way, and the friction is that way over there. So we are just trying to reduce it, and in reducing it by means of rotating, you would get two types, which would be the sliding friction, which is your plain bearings like your GEs, plain spherical roller bear, or plain spherical bearings, which is just oscillating, and then of course your rolling friction, which is your bearing itself, the ball bearing or roller bearing or needle roller, whatever it is that you are actually using. Okay, so when we look at, we're going to focus on, sorry guys, that was a quick slip there. We are going to focus on the rolling bearings first, or mainly the rolling bearings. And if we look at them, all bearings tend to be made up exactly the same way. The components would be either balls or rollers, a cage, an inner raceway, an outer raceway, and some sort of sealing arrangement. Now, the cage would be there if it is a bearing that is what we call not full complement. So the bearing is there just to retain your lubricant and, of course, space your rolling elements. Your inner race, that is your small d over there, your outer race, your big D, and then, of course, your width, which would be your P. And then, like I said, whichever way you try and seal the unit. So when looking at ball, there we go, that's a ball bearing over here. We now need to separate these into the two different categories. And when we look at the two different categories, we've got the ball bearings and the roller bearings. And all of them are made up of these ball and roller bearings. So you would have deep groove ball bearing, angular contact ball bearing, self-aligning ball bearing. They've all got the balls in there. And then the roller bearings, which is your needle roller, cylindrical roller, spherical roller. And we need to understand that they've all got a certain function. So when we look at the ball bearing, we're looking at a round ball that's got only a point making contact between your inner race and your outer race. Your roller bearing's got a nice line contact. And of course, looking at this and stating the obvious, we're looking at how much load do we distribute over these, and then of course, how much speed we are able to carry. If we look at the ball bearing itself over there, I've only got the little point contact, which means I do not have as much friction in between the component. So I can obviously have a higher speed on these ones. When we look at the roller bearing, with that nice line over there, I've got more of a surface area in contact. So I've got more friction generated, so I can't go as higher speed. But when I put a load onto that roller and a load onto that ball bearing over there, of course, that line spreading it out much wider than the ball bearing, so that would give me a higher load carrying capability than the ball bearing. Sorry, guys. Okay, so that is the main criteria when we look at putting in a bearing into an application, is what the capabilities of that unit would be. When we look at the cages itself, a lot of you would know that you get some of them referred to as plastic cages. It's actually a polyamide cage. You get your steel cage and you get your brass cage. Now, brass cages are machined from solid brass, so hence that is, of course, a more expensive unit. But each one of these does have a function within each industry. Okay, when we look at the polyamide cage over here, a polyamide cage is made out of a injection molded plastic, basically. That's putting it in layman's terms. And of course, when we speak about plastic, we got to take into consideration that we've got a high notch impact over there, which makes it more susceptible to breakage than any one of these two. And then, of course, higher temperatures will make this one melt. So the polyamide, guys, is for applications where we've got a no heat, no vibration application. And if I say no heat, remembering that a seal and a cage within a bearing or a polyamide cage, you're able to get peak temperatures around about 110, but a bearing should be running no higher than 70 degrees. That's the temperature that you will start to burn if you had to put your hands on there. Usually we'd like them down about a 53. That means that they're nice and sunny, they're lying on the beach, they're having a whale of a time. That means the lubrication is good, the alignment is good, the vibration is good. Then a polyamide cage would be sufficient. If we look at units that needs to or has surrounding components with that puts out a resonance of vibration onto whatever your application is, we can look at going towards a stamped steel cage, which is now a unit that can take a moderate heat, moderate vibration, and ultimately we can move on to the brass cage, which is designed specifically for a high heat, high vibration application. Okay. Sorry guys, something just on my screen here. Give me 2 seconds. There we go. All right, so getting back to it, components of the bearing. If we look at the cages, we got them in a polyamide a steel cage. And I see some guys still joining. Guys, if you guys have just joined and you missed the welcome to Bearings 2000 first webinar for 2022. Thank you so much for joining us. Right, getting back to it, guys. So the next one would be the sealing arrangement within a bearing. So when we look at seals, you get them rubber or metal, and a lot of guys would come in and say, yes, I want that bearing with the metal seals. No, it is in fact seals versus shields. Okay, so when looking at the units, that would be your 2RS, which is the rubber one. And if you have a look at it over here, it's integrated into the outer raceway, and it does actually make contact with the inner race. That is your rubber unit. Your metal unit is shields. Right, they are integrated into the outer raceway, but there's no actual contact within the inner raceway. And that is simply due to the fact that these shields are metal. And if I had to have contact with both raceways, one of them turning, I would generate some friction. And then, of course, friction would generate an excess heat within the bearing. So there is a slight gap there, right, where this one is a completely sealed unit. So if we look at the benefits of these, this one is the 2RS is better to exclude the contaminants, right, because I do have a little bit of a gap over there. But if we look at the silent running, which is that pink column over there, of course, the rubber on the raceway over there generates friction. That friction will generate noise. So the ZZ unit will be slightly less quiet. And then we look at the grease retention, keeping the grease on the inside. Of course, there the 2RS beats the ZZ again. And then your speed capability, because of the factor of the friction over there, and that being a rubber seal, that allows, or that would generate some heat. And then, of course, you would have a melting temperature on these seals. Okay, so that is just the difference between the seals and the shields. Right, all bearings, of course, have the internal clearance. Now, guys, this is something that I've been dealing with, you know, for the last 20 years, and I'm sure that a lot of my colleagues would confirm this. A lot of times, the people say, "Nah, guy, I want the one that can run faster. Give me the C3." That is actually not what it's about. If we look at the internal radial clearance of a bearing, we are referring to that little space between the rolling elements and the raceway, all right, which is indicated within the suffix with either C3, C4, C5, C2, or C1. If there is no C on there, it is a normal clearance. So that is in microns, and everybody is aware of a micron, 1,000th of a millimeter. So that is all in microns. And guys, the C, or the clearance, radial internal bearing clearance, is there for temperature. Got some movement there, guys. Please just mute. Guys, can I ask that you guys just mute? Thank you so much, guys. Right, the clearance is there, just there, that should I have a temperature difference between the inner race and the outer race of plus minus 15 degrees, I will go up to a C3 clearance, providing more space for the thermal expansion. So when we look at the suffixes, as you can see over here, CN not described or not put in the suffix. C3 is greater than normal, C4 greater than C3, and then the other way around, C2 being less than normal and C1 being less than C2. Yeah, so that is the internal radial clearances on the bearings. Okay. I hope everybody's still with me. Sometimes I tend to go a little bit fast, guys. As we said, we'll have a little bit of a Q&A at the end. So if there is something, make a note, jot it down, and we will get to it. Good. So now we got to look at these bearings that I just spoke to you about. the various between the ball and the roller bearing, of course, like I said, all of them are designed to do a specific job, whether it be a high-speed application or whether it be a high-load application. We need to understand what these bearings are going to do. And then when we look at the loads, we need to understand, sorry guys, I'm starting to run out of English here, but we'll get there. And then we need to understand the different types of loads that plays a factor within your application. So once we look at these, we're looking at a radial load, which is not just, it's not a load from the top, guys. It is actually a load that is running 90 degrees to the shaft or on the circumference of the bearing, and your actual load is parallel to the shaft. So if this was in fact a vertical shaft, your radial load would then be from the side and not from the top. It would be at a 90-degree angle to the shaft, and your actual load would be your parallel. And then of course you have the applications where a combined load, and that is self-explanatory, that combines the radial load within the axial load. So that is just a little bit or a brief as to why we've got ball and why we've got roller bearings. How are these bearings components made up with the rolling elements and the cage, etc., etc. And guys, we're going to have a look at the differences between each and every single bearing now and what they're actually designed for. And you guys need to stay tuned. I mean, next month we're going to get into lubrication, you know, so I'm going to teach you about these bearings now and what they are used for. And next month I'm going to teach you how to lubricate, you know, how to initially fill and how to re-lubricate and all that. So please look out for that one as well. It will be coming up. All right, so let's have a look now. So once we go to the first one, and that's probably the oldest one of them all when it turns to our ball bearings, it is also the bearing that is the most produced and sold around the world. So looking at the guys, we've got someone. Can we just ask that you mute there? Just make sure that you are muted. Thanks, guys. So we got a small contact angle, and if we look at the little arrows that I've inserted over there, we can take some radial load. Axial load is limited in both directions, available in a wide range of sizes. Low friction, so high speeds are possible. Of course, quiet running if it is an open in oil or whether it is a ZZ bearing, and then of course it is a bearing that is favorably priced. Right. In ball bearing as well, your angular contact ball bearing, looking at my arrows now, you'll see that I've only got one little blue arrow, and if you look at the way that this bearing is made up on the inside, you'll see that it is actually, as it says, a contact angle of 40 degrees is where the load is. So this is one of those that we will use for a combined load. You can also use these in pairs, as you can see there, back-to-back, face-to-face, and tandem. So if you've got a actual load from both directions, you would just take one of these now, of course, and flip it around and put them together like that, face to face, or if it's the other way around, you'll put them back to back. Or if you've got a high combined load from a single direction, you would use them in tandem. Okay. There we go. Oh, that's my bad. Okay, so there is our face-to-face, back-to-back, and tandem applications or arrangements. Good. So moving on, self-aligning ball bearing. This bearing was invented in 1907 by a guy called Sven Vrinkist in a little town in Sweden. Okay, and it is a brilliant bearing. You see that there's now a pink arrow added in there. And that pink arrow, of course, is for your aligning capability. Now, guys, got to remember that, yes, when a bearing is able to do the self-aligning within itself, it is not the solution for having misalignment. Okay, we need to understand that bearings need to be aligned for them to be able to do and perform properly and get the maximum number of rotations or revolutions out of them. But this one has got the biggest of them all. The amount of misalignment that it can accommodate is a whole 3 degrees, which is quite a lot in terms of what a bearing is on the inside. And then, of course, we can do the low, we've got to do the high speeds with the low friction. And if we have a look at it, that's basically what it does on the inside there. Limited axial load. Why with a limited axial load? If I do put too much load on there, I will actually push it with out of that alignment range. Good. Okay, lovely bearing that. Having a look at the next one, the Y bearing units. You guys know them as pillar blocks, flange units, or UCFs, UCPs, etc., etc. That is in actual fact only a deep groove ball bearing within a housing, and the housing is the actual magic of this bearing. Can accommodate your misalignment within the capability. If it is a lubricating unit, meaning you've got a little nipple on there and you tend to, or you have got a lubrication schedule, you'll also get 2.5 degrees of misalignment out of this one. If it is a maintenance free unit, yes, maintenance free, guys, 5-lip seal integrated, ask us about that. If you want to know about these insert, ask your Bearings 2000 representative anytime. Right. If it is a maintenance-free unit, you can get up to 5 degrees of misalignment out of these units, which is just mind-blowing. Okay, having a look at what they do, that is actually how these units work. And as you can see, just put my little laser pointer on there. As you can see, it moves within the housing. But the ball bearing itself, the deep groove ball bearing, does what it needs to do. Okay. Being a ball bearing and having these integrated seals, you do not get the same speed out of them. So they are also limited. And once you go to something like a maintenance-free unit that has got 5 lips, the more lips you add, of course, the more friction you'll generate. The more friction you generate, the more heat. So the speed rating does come down a bit. Not a lot, but it does come down a bit. So once again, just ask your representative about the maintenance-free options that B2K is able to provide. Good. Cylindrical roller bearing. That is the oldest of the roller bearings, and that is just made for red arrows. That is radial load all day long. Always your located unit, as the bearing itself does the work in terms of thermal expansion. So you need to be able to, if we have a look at it there, that is what the bearing does. It moves within itself. So you need to locate this unit so that it is able to perform as it is designed to perform. Okay, high radial load carrying capabilities, as I said over there. It is of a separable design, meaning that inner race can actually be extracted from the bearing, and you'll have 2 parts, and hence the cage, as I said before, is there to retain your rolling elements of a separable design. Good. Okay, so let's carry on with the next one. Guys, we have a look over there. It does say, just as an FYI, misalignment limited to plus minus 0.05%. Just if we think of it logically, we've basically got 2 linear lines lying on top of each other over here. So no, misalignment is a big no-no for something like a cylindrical roller bearing and the needle roller bearing. So once again, make sure, if you are unsure, phone your representative. If you need assistance with stuff like laser alignment, we'll be able to guide you and make sure that you'll get optimum rotation out of your equipment. Right, its little brother would then just be the needle roller. So basically same characteristics as the cylindrical roller. The only difference over here, of course, we can have a low cross section, with that being a needle. So our ID and OD can be a lot closer to each other. And we've only got a red arrow over here, guys. No blue arrow. You don't want any actual loads on this unit. Okay. Taper roller bearing, or as the old school guys just still refer to it as a wheel bearing. Yes, most of the vehicles that come out with taper roller bearings, but taper roller bearings does have place in the industrial sector and agricultural sector as well. So you can support a combined load, of course, as you can see over there with that contact angle and being a separable design. We can support a combined load on these units. Available in a range of contact angles, yes, that is usually for the OEM to decide and for people like us to work with the OEM in terms of making the right selection, going into the production of whatever set machine it is. Cup and cone is separable. Minimum actual load prevented to prevent separation. So if I had to take my little blue arrow over there and swap it around and put it on that side over there, of course, I would separate this entire bearing, and then it's just not a bearing anymore. Okay, so these units, of course, gets when they are mounted, a preload, it gets put on there. I know over here in the Western Cape, a lot of the farmers would say, no, maak vas, halve draai terug. That's basically a type of preload, but that preload is calculatable. And of course, we are able to assist with that as well. So that's your taper roller bearing. Spherical roller bearing, most of you will be familiar with these units. If you plumber block assembly units, your industrial fans, you get them in your big industrial gearboxes, winch motors, those type of things as well. So the spherical roller is also one of those that can take a high radial load, but it moves within itself at a 2.5 degree. Let's just get that on there. At accommodates misalignment of 2.5 degrees. So we've also got that little pink arrow over there. All right. So it's an ideal locating bearing, actual displacement capability limited within the actual clearance of this bearing, which is small. Having a sphered roller like that and a raceway, of course, you're not able to actually displace this bearing. Actually displace meaning running outside of each other, the inner race and the outer race displacing with a certain amount. So this bearing wants to be able to accommodate the misalignment. Once again, guys, I need to state the fact that it's not there for misalignment. It is there in case you do develop some misalignment down the road. Ultimately, you need to make sure that your units and machines are aligned appropriately. But as you can see over there, that little nice animation over there, that's how the bearing would be moving within itself, making sure that we do not exceed the capability or the maximum, having it run outside of the raceway. Okay. Guys, you need to understand that we as an SKF authorized distributor, we tend to pride ourselves with the SKF Explorer spherical bearing range, which is of a higher standard. And what makes them different is I just put a couple of points on here, but I can talk to you all day long about the spherical roller bearings. So with these units, of course, sorry about that, you've got the self-guiding rotors over there, which minimizes your friction. Okay, this is your sealed unit. Yes, a sealed spherical roller bearing. Okay, made from super clean and tough steel, upgraded heat treatment. There's a guide ring, and what that guide ring now does is, as the bearing, I'm just going to go back one over here just quickly, and as the bearing comes into its loaded zone. My bad. Sorry, guys. That was just a little bit too quick. Let's stick with this one. As the bearing does come into its loaded zone over here, Okay, if it is mounted, if it's hanging an outer raceway, it would be over there. They actually guide these rollers because as a norm, the rollers would come into the loaded state in a vibrationary state and then of course work its way through the loaded zone. Now they are guiding these with this guide ring, making sure that they come in an optimal position without that excessive vibration coming into that loading zone, you know, and causing the damages, right? The sealed units, of course, pre-lubricated. All of them have got the W33, which is that lubrication groove over there. And what makes this sealed unit so nice is when you put that's in a plumber block now, you can put the entire plumber block full of lubrication around the side, and that now lubrication on the plumber block actually becomes a seal. It becomes a barrier to exclude any or all contaminants. So now you need to run through the seal, through the grease, you get to a bearing and bang, 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 you're bumping your head against another seal. So once you look at these units, guys, they are brilliant units. Ask us about them. We, of course, have to understand that lubrication changes on this because now it is direct lubrication. So it needs to be calculated. And then, of course, we are able to provide you with the units to dispense said amount of grease over a certain amount of time. Okay, stick around for the next one, guys. I'll tell you about that lubrication with our next webinar coming up in April. Good. This one over here, it's called a CARB bearing, compact aligning roller bearing. Now, what has happened over here is basically we've taken a cylindrical roller bearings characteristics and we've taken the spherical roller bearing and we've just gone and mixed them all together. All right, and we came out with the CARB aligning roller bearing. It is a brilliant bearing. Not a lot of people is aware of this bearing. Bearing was launched 96, 95. Yeah, 95, 96. So it's been going for quite a while. It is a brilliant bearing. Ask us about it, guys, if you need to. It is the ideal non-locating bearing along with a spherical roller bearing. But you also locate it. I know it's just too much information to take in. But have a look at the website on the CARB bearing. It is brilliant. Look at that. I'll show you a little animation of what this bearing actually does. Look at that sphere over there. So, and of course the in and out in terms of the actual displacement, right? Up to 10% of the bearing width, meaning if that bearing over there was 45 millimeters in width, I can actually displace this by 4.5 millimeters. Brilliant. It is brilliant. Okay. We will also, as per the cylindrical roller bearing, you'll also put this into a located housing as the bearing does the work for us. Okay, ask us about it. If you guys want to have more information, please. All right, and then, of course, the last items on running through the bearings would be the thrust bearings. So thrust bearings, that is solely to accommodate actual loads. You'll see, look at all those, no red arrows whatsoever, only blue arrows. So there's the various types over there. So your single row, a single direction thrust. There's your single direction thrust with a sphered housing, double direction with sphered housings, cylindrical roller thrust bearing, that is for excessive thrust on the bearing, taken up by the cylindrical roller as per that line. And then, of course, the spherical roller thrust bearing. A lot of people make the mistake of comparing this to a taper roller bearing. No, it is not a taper roller bearing. It is, in fact, a spherical roller thrust bearing. If you do need more information on that as well, please just give us a call. Okay. So that is just a little bit now. Sorry, guys, I'm just being distracted here with something in my ear, but I believe it's gone now. Okay, so that is basically, guys, when, like I said, going back to basics, having a look at why we've got these bearings, why a ball bearing, why a roller bearing, and how does it compare with each other, and why do we have these units within our application, our machine, our vehicle, whatever the case may be. So we need to understand that these bearings, or if you look at it, you see balls, you go, okay, now I'm going to ask them for a ball bearing. No, the ball bearings and the roller bearings all needs to be, of course, identified. So if we look quickly at bearing identification and designations. So this is not a big part over here, guys. I believe we will be running something similar to this to I want to say procurement staff, store staff, those type of people that need to understand what it is that they're ordering, and we will let you know at a later date if that does come in. But for now, let's just have a quick look at it. So if we look at a part number, for instance, this is a 6305ZZ, right? The first digit will tell you the type of bearing. The second one will tell you the bearing series. The last two digits will give you the ball size, and the suffix, of course, will tell you more about the bearing. So that is always to keep in mind when trying to identify, or even going, you just took this bearing out of the application and you want to know, where do I start searching if I can't see anything? And remember, when in doubt, just Google it out or ask us. But each of the units, of course, as I said to you now, we'll start off with the first digit, which would be your series over there. So if you look at the guide at the bottom here, it will tell you what it is, and just a little identification picture as there. And then, of course, your final two digits of the unit, so multiplied by 5 would give you your bore size. Right, so this, of course, information also available. If you need it, ask us how. So we just go and look at some of the exceptions. If in a few cases, the figure for the bearing type, or the first figure of the dimension series identification, is omitted, these figures are shown in brackets in the diagram. Okay. Then, of course, your 00 bearings ending in 00, 01, 02, and 03. So a 6303, for instance, these are according to ISO standards as a 10, a 12, a 15, and a 17 millimeter. Those are your first rules of exception when identifying a bearing. And looking at some other rules of exception when identifying a bearing, if it's usually a ball bearing, if a ball bearing's only got like 3 digits in it, it's usually smaller than 10 millimeter. Your last digit would be of true value. All right. And if once we get to 500 millimeters on the inside diameter, you will have a / after the bearing type, the bearing series, and that will then also be of true value. So that's just a little FYI in terms of identification and designation within the bearings. Okay, so now when selecting a bearing and looking at a bearing, we got to understand that a bearing has only got a certain lifetime. A lot of people would say, yes, the bearing is guaranteed for life. It's not my life. It's not your life. It is, in fact, the life of the bearing itself. And bearing life can be simply identified by the amount of revolutions which a bearing can endure before the first signs of fatigue, flaking develop. So there's a nice little picture over there. That is just fatigue, guys. That bearing is moeg, hy is klaar, hy wil nie meer loop nie, hy het genoeg gedoen. It is the same as when everybody's got somewhere in the neighborhood, there's always a field, there's always a path through that field, whether it be to the corner shop or whether it be to the park or to school or whatever. As you walk on that grass the whole time, eventually there is no grass between your feet and the soil anymore, and it starts to look like that. That is fatigue, and that's the same within a bearing. So bearing life is only in the amount of revolutions we can get out of it. It is a calculatable factor. Living in where we are, and in terms of maintenance, all that, if we do rate a bearing at 1 million revolutions, if we get to 300, 350,000, 350, I would even go as much as 40%, we are doing well. We've got good maintenance, we've got good lubrication, etc. The factors are there. Unfortunately, we'll never get to that million. It's just the way the South African sector is at the moment, in terms of maintenance, plant maintenance, etc., etc. Right. Then we also just need to, as you guys see over here, all my slides have got these little SKF authorized distributor on there as well. We are authorized distributors. We need to be sure that we go through the right channels. We need to understand that counterfeiting is a reality. I can't remember the exact stats. The first time I had counterfeit training in bearings was in 2010. And back then, I'm just speaking under correction here, if I recall it correctly, it was Manchester United, Nike, and then SKF was the third most counterfeited product worldwide back then. So it is a reality. It's part of life. How do we deal with that? We make sure we follow the correct chains. We speak to our bearing supplier and ensure that they are authorized to be able to put that product to the market, that it is a genuine product. So if we just have a look at this over here, you can see, guys, look at that. You tell me the difference. After 20 years in the industry, it still takes me some little bit of assistance from the main supplier to be able to do this. So it is a reality. Make sure you go through the right chain. If you are unsure, speak to your Bearings 2000 representative, and we will do our best to assist. There is, of course, other ways to do it as well. When it comes to SKF, download the app. It's called the Authenticate app. Right, you can download it, iOS and Android, of course. Just go have a look at it. You take a photo of certain, the box, the bearing, the part number, the engraving on the bearing and all that. You upload it, and it gives you a report back as to whether you have a counterfeit product or not. All right, guys, so that's one of them. And then I want to stress to you guys again with the Bearings 2000 Academy that I'm pleased to be sitting here to be able to do this with you guys. So this is the first of many to come. I'll have a look at your questions just now, if there's anything that we need to discuss, and so just a little bit as the end, I'd like you guys to go and have a look at our website, go have a look at our LinkedIn page as well. We do have some in classroom training coming up, Cape Town, and next week Johannesburg. Sorry, I got it. I'll get you that question about the bearing clearances now. Joburg the week after, KZN the week after that. Go and click on the links, put it in, put the registration in there if you are wanting to get some classroom training. Guys, this is the type of training that I like to do. I'm extremely interactive, and I tend to put the best foot forward to be able to help you guys extend. Let's put the word extend out there. Extend the bearing life, extend the rotation. We're not box movers, we are rotational experts. So that is coming up. We're excited about that. Guys, go and subscribe or go and follow the LinkedIn page. There's more to come in the future, but we'll also keep you updated as to what is happening with Bearings 2000 at any given time. Sometimes we put a little bit of social or whatever on there. And then, of course, save the website as well. Drop your email address in there, and we will also keep you up to date with everything that is happening. If you guys are in here, I kind of do have your email address already, but just, you know, if you want to be added to a mailing list, let us know. So yes, so let's get to questions and answers, and I've got one here that says, is there an app for bearing clearances? Unfortunately, there is no app for bearing clearances. Bearing clearances is something that is measurable and that you will find within a maintenance handbook or within training material, which if you come on my course, I will provide you, and of course I will teach you that. But no, unfortunately, there's no app for that. You can go and have a look on various websites of various manufacturers. They will give you what the tolerances is. Now, all of them are ISO tolerances. With some of your other tier bearings will fall under your JIS, which is your Japanese industry standard, but most of them are under the ISOs, which means they will have a minimum and a maximum factor. So you will measure a 22218 clearance, spherical roller bearings clearance with a feeler gauge, and you will have an allotted tolerance, which is just off my head, say between 100 and 120 microns. So there's no app for that, but contact me. I will guide you. We're able to take it to the next one, or just come to my course. Just book yourself in. I'll give you the material. Stick with me. I'll make you famous. Right. Let's just have a look at some more over there. Let's see. Right. Jay Gordon, you asked here, are we able to make the presentation available so that you're able to share? I will provide you with some type of presentation, and this has been recorded. So once that is finalized, this is our first one. So once that is finalized, I will get in contact, and then we'll certainly have a look at sharing the necessary information. All right. Right, then we've got, another question. The shaft tolerance or fitting of bearings, will this be discussed? Yes, the classroom training coming up in the regions, guys. I will have a in-depth discussion and also provide you material with as to shaft tolerances and housing fits, how to select and how to enforce that, how to measure. So that is a vital part of the bearings itself, and mounting and remounting a few times on same shafts, same housings. All right. Yes, food grade, Marco, there is a food grade maintenance free unit. It does come with a food grade lubricant on the inside, also a 5-lip integrated seal. And it is either with a stainless steel or the normal 52-100 mild steel. Just reach out. I will mark it if your details is in there. I'll pick you up. I will make contact with you. I'll discuss the various few options and of course what your needs are. Okay, thanks for that one, Marco. Craig Stone is, are the CARB bearings totally interchangeable with spherical rollers, and are they tapered as well? Craig, yes, they are also sleeve fit units. They also go into the housings. The housings tend to do change because we want a bigger clamp. We want a tighter tolerance or a fit on it. So it does change to a K7 housing. In 90%, I would say 90% of them, they are completely interchangeable with the spherical. So you will have a 22216 and you'll replace it with a C2216 KC3, where you had the 22216 EKC3. So yes, that is. Craig, you and I will have a nice chat about that, and I'll share some successes on that, and we'll see where we go from there. All right. Doesn't look like, wait, there's another one coming up there. There, we got a nice link that's just been posted there, guys. There's the link for the upcoming public training courses. So copy that link into your web browser there and have a look at it. And speak to us, speak to your accounts manager from Bearings 2000, and watch this space. More to come, guys. More to come. All right. Any more questions? Where are we? We're doing fine with time. Any more questions? If not, guys, if you don't want to put the question in there, you're more than welcome to contact me, contact your key accounts manager, or whoever is in your region, as long as it's somebody working at Bench 2000. All right, there we go. Thank you, Michael, for that. Michael just put up our training email address. As there any requirements surrounding the training of rotating, guys, pop us an email at training@brg2k.co.za, and we will be able to get back to you in a timely fashion. All right. Guys, that is, let's just see if something else can. Okay, thank you for that one, Vickers. Thank you so much. Right, I want to once again thank you, guys. I think this will conclude if there's nothing else. Guys, keep an eye out. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for coming on board. Really appreciate it, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Wynand. Splendid course.
There we go. Thanks.
Thank you, Wynand.
Thanks, guys. You all keep well, be safe, and stay away from the war and the COVID.
Thank you very much, Wynand.
Thank you.
Mooi dag vir jou verder.
Nou sê julle moet goed gaan hoor en bly veilig.
Mooi aan. Bye bye. Thanks guys.
Bye bye julle.
Okay, there you go.